Hey folks, welcome to Regular Guy DIY. Today we are going to install a subway tile backsplash to wrap up the kitchen makeover series. Click on the link above to check out other videos in that series. And to create an even cleaner finish for the backsplash, we relocated the kitchen countertop electrical outlets. If you're installing a new kitchen backsplash, this is a must-do in my opinion. You can check out that video right here. So, let's go. To keep up with my latest DIY projects, tips, and product reviews, mash that subscribe button now and ring the bell so you don't miss out on anything. Let's get started. Once you've decided on the type of tile that you intend to use for your project, the next step is to plan for the tile placement. And in this example here, I tried centering the tile on the kitchen sink, but then ended up with a small piece at the end. So instead, I centered the grout line behind the sink, leaving a larger piece of tile in this corner. Then we had the two end sections of the countertop to think about how we wanted the tile laid out. However you do it, you want to try to minimize, if not completely eliminate, the number of very small pieces. And despite all my planning, I still discovered that not everything in my home was perfectly centered or square. As you can see, there's a 1-inch piece of tile on the right side of this window because the sink was off center by a 1/2 inch from the window. Sometimes things like that just don't work out the way that you want. So plan as best as you can, but be prepared to change it up during the process. Some of the tools that you'll need for this project include a metal trowel. I also purchased a couple less expensive plastic trowels. Those made it a little easier to get into some of the hard to reach areas. A sponge, I prefer terry cloth. You'll also need a Grout Float, a large bucket, and I would purchase some cheesecloth to help remove the extra grout from the tile after you've sponged it down. Also, painter's tape and plastic is a good idea to help keep things clean. This can turn into a messy project. With everything covered, I started at the kitchen sink at the center line. Because it was a small area and it was difficult to reach with the large trowel, I used a spatula to apply the tile adhesive, and then I used the smaller plastic trowel to create the high-low grooves that we need to have good tile adhesion. Then I inserted our 1/8 inch tile spacers and started to lay the first row. Because the alternating rows will be offset, I measured the center of the tile, made a mark, where it wouldn't be seen, of course. Then I centered that line above the grout line of the first row tiles. All right, now I have a good basis that I can use to continue on, and I know that I'll have a good uniform look. Because I got a late start that day, I decided just to work on the section behind the sink and below the window. That way the following day I could grout and we could get our sink back as soon as possible. After waiting 24 hours for the tile adhesive to dry, I began applying the grout. Again, because it was a small area, I used a spatula to initially get the grout into the nooks and crannies, and then I went over it with a grout float to smooth it out. Now it's time to fill up that bucket with hot water and grab your sponge. When sponging, you want to move in diagonal directions so that you don't remove too much of the grout from the crevices. In this small area, that was extremely challenging to do. This was the step in the process that demanded the most patience on my behalf. You know what? On second thought, let's not refer to it as a lack of patience. Let's think of it as a sense of urgency to get the project done. Anyway, I lost count of how many times I washed, rinsed, emptied the bucket, refilled the bucket. But eventually, the tile began to show through the grout and the job was looking amazing. Oops, I almost forgot. Be sure to cover your electrical outlets and switches. We don't want to get any tile adhesive or grout inside those electrical boxes. Now it was just a matter of continuing the process and working on the job in bite-sized chunks that I could manage. Now it's about time that I talk about some of those special tile cuts that I had to make, like this one here where I had an electrical outlet that I relocated. Because of the kitchen backsplash and the upcoming bathroom makeover tile job that I had, I decided to spring for an inexpensive tile table saw. Another option is to rent a tile saw from a local home improvement store or to use a tile cutter. This table saw did have some limitations, and in some cases I was almost freehanding cuts. Ultimately, though, I felt that the value was there, given that I have 2 tile jobs that I'll be able to utilize it for. Okay, this may look like the most ridiculous tile job you've ever seen, but this is just temporary. Let me explain what's going on here. Now, I just laid this out for illustrative purposes, but we're at the end of this counter, and where this wall comes out, I'm going to use this metal edging. You can pick that up at your local home improvement store, maybe some of them, I don't know. And this part of it fits underneath the tile, so when your adhesive, your thin set is laid down, it's just going to grip in place. And then you're going to have a thin grout line that's just going to run between this and the edge of your tile. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to finish this off with one piece, and I'm going to run it down to the bottom of the counter just because I didn't want to end it with a square at the very bottom. I just thought I'd take it all the way down to the bottom of the counter space. And then up here we have these small little pieces here that fit in, that finish the corner. And then we'll have another piece that's going to fit in here just like that to finish off the top. Now, I needed to lay these things out and get a pretty good idea of where they're going to be so I could trim them down, have them temporarily screwed into place so that when I lay my thin set down, they're held, and then I can just lay my tile over and it's going to finish off nicely. So what I did here is I put the spacers in, put my first row of tile. Now, all of these are not going to dead end here at this trim piece. The bottom row is going to start here, and then back here there will be about a 3/4 length piece of tile. This one will be offset, so about a half length of tile here. No, exactly a half length of tile starting here. And then in the middle of this one will be a full piece and then a small piece at the end. And those are going to alternate. So this will be a full piece starting here, this one, and then this one. Now, because the cabinet sticks out here, I'm going to have to trim this piece so that it's going to fit along the bottom here, and it's going to fit along the front edge. So this is just a piece that I cut, and I had it all ready to go to lay over one of the electrical outlets, and then I broke it. So I just reversed it here. I'm not really going to put the tile on backwards, but I just laid this up here so I could get a feel for the measurements and how this was going to lay out and what the exact length needs to be for these trim pieces so I can cut them down. So I have this. It's actually kind of just snuck. It's kind of just tucked in behind this tile right now. And I'm going to put this piece of tape on the edge just because I don't want to mark directly on this. And I'm going to use a permanent marker. And I hope you can see what I'm doing here, but this is the top of the tile. We're going to have 1/8 of an inch of grout. And so where that second, the top line is, that is where this piece is going to fit in. And it's kind of hard to show that to you here. Something like that. And of course, so I'm going to cut it here, put the corner piece in, and then lay this in this direction. I'm going to trim this down to the exact length. Once that top piece is cut, I'm going to use some wood screws just to hold it in place temporarily until the thin set is in. And then once that's laid and the tile's on top of it, it's not going anywhere. Now, the other piece is cutting this piece of tile that's going to fit here where this backwards piece is, because that's not staying there. So what I did is I laid this out here. I made a mark at the edge of the cabinet. Then I brought it up here. I made sure with the spacers that it was perfectly laid out. And then I marked the bottom of the cabinet. So I'm going to kind of eyeball this, but I'm not going to work it up too much. This is essentially, it'll be square. I just didn't want to mark on tile that I'm going to use. But that essentially is the piece that I'm going to cut out. So I'm going to have to use the saw to notch it down to here. And then I'm going to cut in this direction to notch out that little corner. And we'll slide it right in there. Now I just need to take those two marks and create exact cut lines that I can follow. Be sure to follow all necessary safety precautions whenever using a cutting device. Do not, I repeat, do not follow my example. Now, after completing the rest of that wall section, the piece fit into place perfectly. For the fifth row, I had to rip the tile lengths into 1-inch strips and then cut them to length as necessary to fit them into place. Installing the tile edging around the windows was similar, although on one side I had the added element of light switches and an electrical outlet that we did not relocate. And finally, there was one more obstacle that I had to overcome: our gas range. I recommend that you place a thick piece of cardboard or similar material underneath any appliance before moving it. Now, if you haven't removed a gas range before, be sure to observe all the safety precautions that are necessary. If you goof something up, you could kill yourself or blow up your house. So, be careful. For specific instructions on removing an appliance, consult your user's manual. If you have any doubt about whether you can do it safely or not, please contact a professional. Stove removed and I have everything covered up. I'm ready to get started. So what I'm going to do here is the subway tile is going to be passing just behind our stovetop, and you are going to see it, so I have to continue the tile back behind it, just so if you kind of stick your head around the corner, you're not going to see just blank wall there. So, but the tile will need something to support it, but I'm not going to tile all the way to the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little piece of wood to support the tile as it extends out this way, but I'm going to go down one row. Okay, so when the spacers are in place, this tile is going to sit just off the countertop by 1/8 of an inch. And I'm approximating it, but I should be within about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch when I'm all done here. And I want to make sure this is level, so I'm just going to put some marks here. I think the top of, or the bottom of this tile is going to be. So now I can put this in place, and this is going to be the one extra piece of tile that I lay with our gap. Then the bottom of the tile is going to go here. And I've extended the line all the way across. And then this wood trim piece is going to go in here. And it's not exactly straight. There's a little bit of a bend, but that gap will be filled in with the same grout that we used back there. So I just want to get an approximation of where this is going to go. And I'm going to find our wall studs. That didn't work. And I'm going to go right there. And one right there. So now I'm using some wood screws. And I'm just going to drive it in here. we go. Now we have a little shelf to rest that next row of tile on, and we're ready to get going. With the wood strip in place and the tile edging on the right side of the window, I was able to move forward on that section of the wall and continue using the same method of tile installation. Now that all the tile was in place and grouted, it was time to clean up, remove all of the protective tape, reinstall the gas range, and prepare for the next step. I used a grout sealer to help protect the joints from getting dirty. This particular type has a brush on the end. It was easy to apply. Just be sure to remove any runoff, and you can apply a second coat if necessary. Our kitchen makeover series is now complete, and we are so excited about the results. If you've missed any of the episodes in the kitchen makeover series, be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you saw, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps the video performance on YouTube so others can see it too. If you have any questions or feedback about this video, please let me know and leave a comment below to let me know what projects you'd like to see. I'm going to give a fist bump to my subscribers. If you're not one, hit that button so you don't miss out on my latest content. And ring the bell so you get notifications as soon as I drop new videos. Thanks again for watching Regular Guy DIY. You got this.